I'd say there's no limit to what you can do in the maritime industry, even if you don't have a background in maritime, even if you don't have a college degree, even if you don't have a particular skill set. There's so many things that you could learn just walking in. Even a high school diploma can prepare you enough for a really eventful career in the maritime industry. My career journey began many years ago, but I've always been in the public service sector. The first job I had, it was a humbling experience. I was a garbage man. I think what I learned from that was it doesn't matter what job you're doing. If you do it to the best of your ability and you're providing a good service, bosses take notice. And then after I was working for the service department, I went on to be a police officer. I had a 4-year degree in criminology from Ohio State University. I enjoyed that work a lot. After that, I became a law enforcement officer with the mounted unit for Cleveland Metro Parks. So I patrolled all the park districts on horseback. I like my job now, but I have to say that was my favorite job of all time. But there was time to move on, and I took a job with Cleveland Metro Parks in their park management team. I was the manager for lakefront parks, and that was really my first introduction to maritime, which led me to the Port of Cleveland, where I currently am employed. I am really enjoying still being on the waterfront and being downtown Cleveland. What I do at the Port of Cleveland in my role as Vice President of Operations and Facilities, anything that has to do with the operations that are ongoing on the port, related to equipment, related to the facilities. Essentially, I just make sure that everything runs smoothly from a logistical standpoint, and also that it's a safe environment for the people to work in. There are so many facets to what I do. It's a very large encompassing of job duties that I do. I deal a lot with all sorts of different people, which is something I still enjoy doing. And I'm also in charge of all the security on the port. And being a port that has international vessels in all the time, it's something important that the federal government, the U.S. Coast Guard, Department of Homeland Security, U.S. Customs, we work very closely with them to make sure that goods and service products that are coming into the port are safe, and that the people that are coming in on these vessels, not only that they're safe, but that they're not coming into Cleveland to do harm or going into the city to be disruptive or anything like that. Thankfully, in the U.S., we have a very robust federal agencies that handle that type of work, particularly U.S. Customs and Border Protection and U.S. Coast Guards, and again, the Department of Homeland Security. After 9/11, after the attacks of 9/11, 2001, a lot of the rules and protocols changed for not only airports, but also seaports, meaning we're a lot more strict. We are a lot more aware of not only who the foreign people are that are crew members on the vessels, but also the cargo that's coming in. U.S. Customs, every vessel that comes in, they board and they search it and check it. They are also checking the cargo. Any containers that come into the Port of Cleveland are scanned for radiation, and the U.S. Coast Guard as well provides another layer of defense for anyone that would be trying to act in a nefarious manner coming in through a port of entry through, say Port of Cleveland or any of the major seaports. Where our role as the Port of Cleveland comes in is we work closely with them to give them the tools and the spaces that they need to be able to operate safely on our facility inside the port. We also have cruise vessels that come into the Port of Cleveland. There's stringent checks and balances that are done to ensure that they are who they say they are, and we positively identify them. What sparked my interest in the maritime industry was being around the lakefront. When I was working at Cleveland Metro Parks, I would see the freighters pulling in and out of the different docks and the bulk terminal, as well as the international docks, and I was wondering, what was going on. And when the opportunity came up to apply for the Port of Cleveland job and I got the position, I was extremely excited because maritime was something I had no familiarity with, but I knew the city of Cleveland had a very rich history in the maritime industry, and I was excited to be a part of that and learn more about it. And that really got me motivated to dive into this job head first and learn as much as I could and talk to as many people as I could. Some advice I would give to somebody that's looking to get into the maritime industry would be A, to think outside the box, and B, to do some research on your own, and C, I think, is to just realize that starting out in the maritime industry, you're not going to start out as a CEO or a president of a company or something like that. The maritime industry, it takes a while to kind of work your way up in certain areas, but it's extremely rewarding, and I think there's a lot of really great careers and well-paying careers that people just don't think of when they're in school, that would be something they could do. And a lot of these jobs you can do without a college degree or minimal college degree. A lot of it is the training you'll receive as you get into the career. And I think that's important because a lot of people graduate high school and they're not sure what they want to do. Do the research, talk to people that are in the industry, and I think they'll really help you kind of get a plan together and find the job that's right for you in the maritime industry. Minor disruptions can cause major disruptions in the supply chain. It can be anything from weather-related. Labor negotiations can sometimes cause delays, and once there is a disruption, it's kind of like a domino effect, and that can really take a long time to sort out. Other issues that we run into are, we'll have a vessel at the Port of Cleveland that might need to get worked on, just like anybody's car needs to get worked on. These are engines and propulsion and a lot of machinery inside the vessels. If there's a problem with that and they can't get a part, that can cause severe delays as well. So the supply chain disruptions are just a fact of life, and the way we get through those is just logistically trying to figure out the fastest way to rectify a problem and just keep things moving. So the maritime industry is an industry that doesn't sleep. It's always happening. There's always goods moving across the ocean, in our Great Lakes, across our docks. So I think people don't realize that there is a long story that goes behind those products that are coming over to the U.S. Even products we import here at the Port of Cleveland, mainly steel products, but those products are traveling a vast distance. They get offloaded on a vessel here, they go onto a truck, they go to a refinery, and the end result may be that's an auto part or a vehicle that you need, or metal that goes into an appliance. And I just always am amazed when I think about the supply chain and how intricate it is, how much of a logistical nightmare it can be at times, especially during COVID. We all heard about supply chain issues and had to deal with delays in getting things that we normally used to be able to get in a quick manner. Any minor disruption can really cause a major disruption in distribution and the supply chain and logistics. So I think people don't really think about that when they're pulling a product off the shelf or looking for a car part or things of that nature. They just assume it's going to be there, and it's a lot of work to get those things here, as well as exporting things. It's the same idea. The best part of my job, what I enjoy a lot, is just the fact that it's not the same every day. There's always something different that comes up. I enjoy the challenge of dealing with logistical problems and trying to find a solution, especially working with other people in the maritime industry to come up with solutions for problems. A big part of what we do is trying to find the quickest, most efficient, and the safest way to do things. So every day there's a challenge of trying to improve. And that really drives me, and I enjoy doing that, and I enjoy the challenge. The other thing I really enjoy about my job is all the different people I get to talk to and deal with. I like dealing with people that are from other countries and seeing how things operate in the maritime industry in their countries. I find that very fulfilling, and it's exciting, and it's something that I look forward to. I believe the Port of Cleveland is so important because of a lot of the work we do behind the scenes. We're the only government agency whose sole function is to spur the economy and create jobs. And I think we also do a lot of work behind the scenes that people don't realize, as far as sustainability in this region as well. The dredging material that is pulled from the river, we put that into confined disposal facilities, and we have found ways to be able to reuse that dredged material and not just fill up these CDFs with material. You know, we have our debris harvesters that keep the river and the harbor clean. We're out there just about every day in May through October pulling garbage and trash out of the river and the harbor area. Another thing I don't think people realize is we have a nature preserve that was once a CDF that turned into a beautiful park that people can go and enjoy. It's right downtown, and it's somewhere, it's like an oasis away from the downtown, and it's important for the ecosystem. It supports a lot of the birds migrations and the butterfly migrations. Career advice that motivates me, there's a few things. I would say the first is just I get up every day and I know I gotta work hard at my job. There's really no replacement for hard work. At the end of your day, you can kind of take a deep breath and realize I did as much good as I could today for my profession and for my coworkers. The other thing is you need to own your decisions. Whether you make a mistake or not, you know, what's done is done. You have to learn from that. You have to move on. If you don't own your decisions and you get into the habit of pointing fingers or making excuses, people don't respect people that do that. And even if you're not the smartest or the best worker, if you have respect of your coworkers and your colleagues, I think that's extremely important. The last piece of advice that I'd have is discipline equals freedom. You need to have self-discipline so you can be a master of yourself in what you do. And that, again, that relates back to accountability. And I think that's probably the most important thing. Hold yourself accountable. COVID was a disruption to the supply chain. So during COVID, we realized we had to make adjustments. Even though maritime had to continue, we had to be as safe as we could to make sure people weren't getting sick. Getting vaccinated was a big part of that, and there was a big push in the maritime industry to get people vaccinated. A lot of the foreign vessels that were coming to the ports, these folks unfortunately were from areas or parts of the world that didn't have access to vaccines and things like that. We decided at the port to work with the City of Cleveland Division of Health, and we were able to get some volunteers, and we would either drive the foreign crew members to different clinics to get the vaccination, or we even had nurses come down to the port, go on the vessel, vaccinate these seafarers that were coming in, because we knew it was important for them to protect themselves and stay healthy. And we also knew that in their home countries all over the world, access to the vaccines it wasn't a reality for them. So we felt like we were doing the right thing by getting them access to the vaccines and help keep them safe, but also help keep not only the economy, but just the supply chain and logistics, keep that going. Because the maritime industry is so vast, I would say just start doing some research online. If it's somebody's directly interested in port authorities and what port authorities do, there's the American Association of Port Authorities, AAPA. That's a great resource. They have a job board online that they post different jobs at. So even stuff like U.S. Coast Guard and Merchant Mariners, there's different schools that are basically a training ground to teach people how to be a crew member on a vessel and things like that.